Assalamualaikum class. So this is the last chapter of geography. Now the name of the chapter is power, and you will see that throughout the lecture I'll be talking about energy. So you should first understand that if this is a chapter of power, then why am I talking about energy? So the reason is that the meaning of power is that it is the rate at which the energy is transmitted, right? So now do you see that there's a link between power and energy, right? So remember that for efficient power production, we need to have efficient energy, right? Now, when we talk about the efficiency of energy, that means in other words, we are basically talking about sustainable energy. And now we are going to see how sustainable energy gives rise to efficient energy, and that further gives rise to efficient power production. So, in order to understand sustainable energy, we should first know the literal meaning of the word sustainability. So the literal meaning of the word sustainability is that it is a capacity to support, maintain or endure, that you maintain something at its constant level throughout a longer period of time, right? Now, since 1980s, human sustainability has been related to the integration of environmental, economic and social dimensions towards responsible global management of resources. So class, for this, remember that sustainability basically depends upon three factors. When I say that I'm going to make a sustainable decision, or I'm going to make sure that this is a sustainable energy, then that means I am going to take into consideration three factors. Number one, it is going to, of course, take place for a longer period of time. And in that longer period of time, it is not going to have any detrimental effect on the environment, or in simpler words, on the planet. It is not going to have any detrimental effect or any harmful effect on the economy, or in other words, money. And it is not going to have any detrimental effect on the society or the people, basically. So, for example, if I plan to set up an industry, then I should make sure that whatever decision I'm going to take for the growth of my industry, I should make sure that it should not be harmful for the economy, for the environment and for the people in long term, right? So just to gain my short-term benefits, just to have the good earning, I am not going to compromise on the needs of the environment and economy and the people for long term, right? So in ecology, sustainability relates to how biological systems remain diverse, strong and productive over time. Now, in order to understand this, you should first know what exactly is ecology. So ecology is basically a field of biology which basically shows the relation between different living organisms and between living organisms and the environment, right? So when you talk about this relation and you talk about sustainability in ecology, you basically mean that this diversity should remain there and that should be productive over time as well. So we know that we have different species of living organisms living on the earth, and they are diverse, right? So we know that we should be able to maintain this diversity, because this is beneficial for the working of the food chain as well, right? We know that food chain depends upon diversity as well, and we all know that different living organisms are dependent upon one another. We read about this in the chapter of habitat and food chain, right, in science. Now let's talk about sustainable energy. So sustainable energy is sustainable energy is the provision of energy that meets the need of the people at present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their needs. So in simpler words, that means that you should be able to provide that energy in order to cater to the needs of the people who are living right now, but you're not going to waste all the energy, and that doesn't mean that you're not going to save any energy for the future generation, right? So sustainable energy means that you are giving energy to the people who need it right now, but you're not going to waste it, or you're not going to save it for the future generations, right? Because then this is going to create a lot of chaos. The future generations are going to hate us for doing that, right? For wasting the energy and for leaving nothing for them. So in simple words, sustainable energy is about using energy wisely and using energy generated from clean sources. So these two points are very important, because number one, it says that you should use energy wisely. You should make sure that no energy resource is wasted. You should make sure that when you turn on the light, you only turn it on when you really need it. And if you don't need it, just turn it off, right? So that's a way through which you are using energy wisely as an individual, right? And number two, when you say that you're going to get the energy resources from the clean sources, then that means that this is not going to have any effect on the environment. For example, if we use the energy from fossil fuels, we know that burning of fossil fuels basically results in the production of carbon dioxide and other toxic gases as well, right? So this carbon dioxide basically causes global warming, right? We have already discussed this in geography and in some chapters of the science as well. Now, so we should make sure that we get the energy from the clean sources. By clean sources, it means that this is not going to have any bad effect on the environment, right? Now, wise energy use is the first step to ensuring we have sustainable energy for present and future generation. Of course, when we are not going to waste energy, we are making sure that the energy remains sustainable. Being efficient with our energy will reduce our household and business energy bills. So it is first going to benefit you, right? And how is it going to benefit us? We are going to reduce the energy bills. We are going to reduce the electricity bills, right? And number two, it reduces the amount of energy we need to produce in the first place and cut energy-related greenhouse pollution. We know the more energy we use, and Pakistanis, especially we as a country, are very much dependent upon fossil fuels as an energy source, right? And we know that the burning of fossil fuels causes pollution. So when you make sure that there's less energy consumption, so you're burning less fossil fuels. So when you burn less fossil fuels, your environment remains clean, right? Now, technologies that promote sustainable energy include renewable energy resources. So here it is very important to understand the meaning of the word renewable. So renewable basically means that an energy resource, renewable energy resource, is the energy resource that remains over there for a longer period of time, right? That does not finish. For example, if we talk about fossil fuels, we know that since it takes millions and millions of years for fossils to form, we know that higher consumption of fossil fuels will eventually lead to depletion of the fossil fuels, right? So the renewable energy resources are basically water. So water produces hydroelectricity, sun, through which you get the solar energy, wind, through which you get the wind energy, wave power, and then geothermal energy. Geothermal energy is basically the heat which is stored inside the earth. So that heat is used in order to generate the energy, and that energy is then used in order to generate the power. Tidal power, and also technologies designed to improve energy efficiency. So when you talk about sustainable energy, you will come across the word renewable energy resources a lot many times, and that's because renewable energy resources make sure that number one, your environment is not compromised at all. Your environment remains safe and clean, right? And number two, you make sure that this is not going to run out. So this is going to help the future generation, right? So do you now understand the link between sustainable energy and renewable energy resources, right? Now, let's talk about sustainable uses of power resources in Pakistan. Since this is geography and we are studying geography specifically about of Pakistan, so we are going to talk about sustainable energy resources, keeping Pakistan in view. So Pakistan's population and economic growth are expected to continue, and as a result, the demand for energy will grow even higher. So do you know that so this country has a lot of energy resources, and we have a tendency and we have a potential to grow, right? So it is basically said that we are going to have a lot of economic growth, and we are going to need energy, right? So current estimates show that the demand will grow to over 122 million tons of oil equivalent. So tons of oil equivalent is a unit of energy that is produced from the fossil fuels, right? From the energy resources. So tons of oil equivalent means that how much energy is produced when 1 ton of oil, 1 ton of crude oil, or 1 ton of a fossil fuel is burnt, right? So that now they're telling you that you need 122 million tons of oil equivalent of energy, right? So this is a huge amount of energy that you need. So it is now, since you need a lot of energy in order to progress, so that shows that it is our responsibility right now to make sure that we save energy, right? So how are we going to save energy? So even as individual families, how are we going to make sure that we save energy? Number one is install energy efficient measures. So you will realize that the points below basically talk about the energy efficient measures. So energy efficient measures means that you're going to take those measures which are going to make sure that energy is not wasted, right? Energy is basically not wasted, and energy is produced at its maximum without any wastage, basically, and without any detrimental effect on the environment. So point number 2 is replace and recycle old refrigerator and purchase energy efficient models. Older models can use more electricity than the new ones. So do you know that the older models of cars, older models of TVs, older models of refrigerators, they basically required more electricity, but as industrialization got more, and as technology was incorporated, more industrialization, then people basically went on to produce energy efficient methods. So they made sure that less electricity is used by the appliances, right? So please, we are all requested to install such appliances which will consume less electricity. Number 2, insulate ceilings, that will help reduce electricity bills. So pause this video for a second and think, why do you think that by insulating the ceilings you are basically going to help reduce the energy loss, or you're going to help reduce the electricity bill? Okay, so the reason is that there might be some gaps in the ceilings. So for example, if you've turned on an AC and all the air inside the room is being leaked outside, then basically you're going to turn on the AC for a longer period of time, right? This is going to waste energy. So you make sure that the ceiling is first of all sealed or insulated, so there is less heat loss. Number 2 is so this is an example of right now we talked about insulating the ceiling. We also have windows to which air can leak, right? To which air can go out. So in colder regions of country, weather strip can be put around windows and doors to save energy. So instead of turning on the heater, what they can do is that they can use the weather strip. So weather strips basically makes the door knobs and makes the sides of the windows even more airtight, to prevent any air from outside to come inside and any air from inside to go outside, right? So it basically prevents the leakage. Then heater's thermostat in winter should be set at 20 degrees Celsius, and air conditioner should be set at 26 degrees Celsius for summers, because they will require more energy if they're set beyond these figures. So at these temperatures, they give enough heat and they give enough cold temperature. We don't need more than that, because if we go for more than that, then that is going to result in more energy consumption, right? And that is even going to result in more energy bills, electricity bills as well. Now the other one is clean or replace AC and heater filters regularly for optimal use. Sometimes we keep on bringing the AC down to 17 degrees Celsius, but we don't realize that we just have to clean the filters in order to make sure that enough cold air is generated from the AC. We have to make sure that the filters are basically clean and there's no dust on the filters for the proper flow of energy of cool air inside the room. Now the other one is fix defective plumbing and or defective dripping faucets as soon as possible. So basically that means faucets are basically the taps. So have you ever seen that there usually some water dripping from the taps, and that is of course wasting the water, right? And even there's some leakage in the water pipes as well, and especially and the gas pipes as well. So you make sure that there's nothing like that in your home in order to save energy at an individual level, right? Defrost refrigerators and freezers before the thick buildup of ice. Now, why are they saying defrost refrigerators? Because when you when there's ice on the sides of the refrigerator, then that basically reduces the efficiency of the refrigerators, so they become less efficient. Then whenever there is a need to change electrical item, replace them with energy efficient gadgets, example energy saving bulbs. Remember in science we read about incandescent cells or the filament lamp, so replace them with the energy saving bulb. So because energy saving bulbs basically produce less heat energy and saves more energy basically. Now let's talk about the challenge of renewable resources. Balancing humankind's need for energy with the environment cost to our planet. Okay, so this is a very important line because it says that yes, we need energy and that's our need, but not at the cost of our environment. You should make sure that at least the environment is not damaged. Demand for energy is forecasted to increase 50% by the year of 2025, right? So as technology is incorporated more, and as we are basically getting more towards technology, we are going to grow more, right? And when we are going to grow more, there's going to be more demand for energy, right? So currently over 1.6 billion humans have no access to electricity, and 2.4 billion rely on plant material, vegetation, or agriculture waste as an energy and heating source. Our fossil fuels consumption is escalating and could double. So we are not going towards renewable energy resources, rather we are still on fossil fuels. And this is very detrimental for the environment. This is going to damage the environment really badly. This is not going to be a problem for us only, this is going to be a huge problem for the future generations. So we as humans should be careful for the others as well, right? We should be empathetic towards others, and we should make sure that we're not going to put them in any trouble because of our non-serious attitude, right? The struggle for alternatives, the world over is on. So basically we are working to look out for other alternatives, and the other alternatives are renewable energy resources, right? We want to shift from the fossil fuels towards solar energy, towards wind energy, water energy, right? So high oil prices, growing concerns over energy security, and the threat of climate change have all stimulated investment in the development of alternatives to conventional oil. So we are all trying to move towards alternative sources of energy, right, other than the conventional oil or other than the fossil fuel. And why? Because number one, oil is very costly. Number two, because we know that this fossil fuel will eventually run out, right? So we should rather shift ourselves into something which is going to stay over here for a longer period of time. And number three, because it is having bad effects on the environment as well. So there are these three reasons because of which we want to shift towards shift to other sources. There has been a lot of debate about using alternative energy that comes from renewable sources, right? Other than the fact that these sources are very expensive as compared to non-renewable resources, there are other factors which make it difficult for countries like Pakistan to invest in developing renewable energy resources. Some of the important ones are given below. So if we know that we have renewable energy resources, then what's the problem, right? Why don't we shift to the renewable energy resource? So the reason is that number one, since it's a new technology, it's a new thing, so it is very expensive right now. And so we are going to discuss these factors as well. So there has been a lot of debate about using alternative energy that comes from renewable sources. So that's the same point. So number one is, why do you think we are not using renewable energy resources? Number one, because it's very expensive. So let's first discuss this first point. With renewable energy, it is difficult to generate the quantities of electricity that are as large as those produced by traditional fossil fuel generators. It may mean that we need to either reduce the amount of energy used or simply build more energy facilities. So fossil fuels generate a lot of energy, right? And these renewable energy resources cannot generate that much energy as the burning of fossil fuel can, right? So in order to reach that energy level, you're going to have more infrastructure for the renewable energy resources, right? So the reason is, number one, that renewable energy resources, they basically produce less energy compared to fossil fuels. So the other point is, renewable energy sources rely on weather as their source of power. So for example, wind power depends upon weather, right, which is mostly unreliable. Of course, we all know that. Wind turbines need wind to turn the blades. Solar collectors need clear skies and sunshine to collect heat and make electricity. So for solar energy, you need to have clear sky and you need to have more sunshine, of course. In the absence of these resources, the production of energy is not possible. So the first problem that we discussed is that renewable energy resources do not produce as much power as the burning of the fossil fuel. Number two, because the renewable energy resources mostly depend upon weather, right? For example, solar energy depends upon weather, wind energy depends upon weather. So this is something that's not reliable. The third point is, the current cost of the renewable energy technology is also far in excess of traditional fossil fuel generation. This is mostly due to the fact that this technology is new and will require huge capital investment. So the initial cost of these new energy resources, the initial cost is really high. In order to buy these systems for generating solar energy, solar electricity, these all things are really costly compared to traditional fossil fuels. Wind turbines are noisy and they kill a lot of birds. Now, the current state of renewables in Pakistan. So energy production in any country is a measure of its economy. So energy helps generate power, and more efficient power means that you have more good economy, right? Why am I saying that? So pause this video for a second and think that how does power relate to economy? Now, so let's discuss how is power related to economy. So no country can attain high economic growth without producing sufficient energy. Why are they saying that? Now read this passage. Production of energy reflects industrial output, agriculture output, transportation. So let's explain this. Now I'm going to explain this, right? So production of energy reflects industrial output. So if you have more energy, that means there's enough energy for the machinery to work, right? So if the machinery is working properly, that means there is more industrial output. Number two, agriculture output. So you know that you have the whole irrigation system, and you have the tube wells. So there are electrical tube wells as well. You have the tractors, they also need energy, right? So if you have proper energy, then that means you're going to have more agricultural output. And then for transportation, of course, we know that vehicles depend upon electricity. So when the energy supply of an industry is restricted, its output decreases and cost of production increases. So when energy is restricted, when there is less energy, that means there is going to be less output. We have already discussed this, right? And when there is going to be less output, then that means, okay, so when you have less energy, the cost of production is even going to increase, right? Due to which many industries shut down, leaving labor unemployed. So this eventually leads to unemployment. So when you don't have enough energy, then that means that your output is going to decrease. And when your output is going to decrease, you're going to because of course you're going to make sure you have enough output, you're going to invest more. This is going to increase the cost of production. And since if for example, if the owner does not have enough money, then he's going to eventually shut down the industries. And when he's going to shut down the industries, this is going to lead to unemployment. The recent upsurge of inflation is due to energy shortages in Pakistan. The number of people living below the poverty line is increasing due to the unemployment and inflation, both of which are byproducts of energy crisis. So you should know that energy crisis leads to inflation and energy crisis leads to unemployment. As the high production cost decreases the rate of output, of course, if the production cost is going to be high, the owner is going to invest less. So the outputs are going to be produced less, right? The exports of Pakistan are continuously declining. So of course, if you have less outputs generated, then you're going to export less, right? Our trade deficit is increasing, which eventually will result in an unstable economy. Like industry, agriculture is heavily dependent upon electricity and oil. We have already discussed this. Our crop production has failed to achieve its targets. Its target. Increases in the price and availability of oil and natural gas directly affects transport. We have discussed this as well. Expensive commercial transport further increases the cost of a product, which increases the purchasing capacity of people. So of course, if the transport is going to be of higher cost, and we know that most of the people in Pakistan poor, they are not going to avail that opportunity, right? So this is going to be a problem not just for the people, but for the owner of the transport as well, right? Pakistan is in the grip of a serious energy crisis. So we are basically right now in the grip of energy crisis. That's why you see that there's a lot of unemployment in Pakistan. So do you understand that this current scenario is also, we as individuals are also responsible for that? We know that it is the government is going to take initiatives to allow for renewable energy resources to be used in Pakistan. But even as individuals, don't you think that we should not waste energy? So please ponder over this and make sure that you do not waste energy, at least at the individual level, right? Now, it is difficult to resolve this crisis domestically on a shorter term. Of course, you cannot change the whole scenario. The sector needs a lot of investment, which is not possible due to unstable political conditions, terrorism, and lack of security, especially for foreign investors. So do you know that for the past years, there was a lot of terrorism in Pakistan as well? Alhamdulillah, it has reduced now. But because of that terrorism, foreign investors were not interested to invest anything in Pakistan. And when they're not going to invest money, then of course it is going to be difficult for Pakistan, which usually faces a lot of political instability, to incorporate such renewable energy resources, right? So what's the conclusion? With the current energy consumption trends in Pakistan, which are very inefficient. Why are they saying that the energy consumption is inefficient? Because we right now depend upon fossil fuels mostly. In all the sectors, namely domestic, even at our homes, we are getting electricity that's coming from the fossil fuel, industrial, trade, and commercial sectors. About 10% of the national electricity can be saved by applying only the first level of energy conservation, but this requires a change in attitude. So we as individuals should promise today that we're going to change our attitude, and we're going to make sure that we're not going to waste this energy for the sake of the people who are living right now, and also for the sake of the people who are going to come in the future. Now, it is simple, instant, and effective, and all it requires is to stop using energy unnecessarily. The second part of the solution is a change in lifestyles. The nation has to draw a clear line between necessities such as lighting, fans, and computers. We do understand, right? Computer is something very important, right? And that needs electricity. We know lighting is something very important, but at night time, right? During daytime, we can even work without lights. So we don't even need to turn that on. Now, there are luxuries as well that we go for, and luxuries such as, for example, overlit shopping malls to have good pictures, right? Microwaves, etc. There's not enough electricity to meet both requirements. So please choose between the necessity and the luxuries. Make sure that you draw a clear line, and you should know that yes, if something is necessary, go for that. But if something is luxury and you can avoid it, please avoid that. Do not waste energy on these things. The government has to explore alternatives of energy generation and must also raise awareness about saving energy. So we are going to save energy. We are going to make sure that there is sustainable energy. But first, we should make sure as individuals we are not going to waste energy, and we are going to spread this awareness as well. You should take this responsibility to tell others that we shouldn't waste energy, right? And then once we save energy, then of course we can look up to the government to invest on renewable energy resources. So that's all. This chapter has an amazing message for all of you right now. So please take into consideration this message for this world, for the environment, for the planet, for the people, right? So that's all. Good luck with geography.